Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm your boy Abram, joined as usual by Tucker Hazel, and we are actually here for BLB. We're bringing the show back, second episode of season 2, in which we're going to be talking all about the games we've been playing that don't make sense in the context of a full review. And trust me, we both have a couple of those that we're going to get into today.
Oh yeah.
Before we do, Tucker, if you out there at home want to talk to us about the games you've been playing, join our Discord as usual. Link in the top of the description while you're down there. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, you know what to do. It's very hot here in Maine. I'm going to be sweltering a little bit. I'm going to be sweaty. So don't get too aroused during this episode of BLB.
No, I will certainly try my best not to.
I was referring
However,
to the audience, but
I'm part of your digital audience here. However,
sure.
it's going to be very difficult for me not to become aroused, sweaty, sexually charged when I am talking about our first game of the day, which is of course Kicks, the Nintendo Game Boy I believe launch title puzzle game. This is a game that was ported to plenty of stuff. It is something that was, I believe, popular back in the day. Got a bunch of sequels. There's a PlayStation one. There's a couple of arcade ones. It's on NES. It's on Game Boy. I just tried this because I heard that it was a launch game and it was a little bit strange kind of puzzle game. And it's definitely one to, I would say, look for because I think it's a great game. I think it's simplistic puzzle mechanics at their very best.
Yeah.
But it's not particularly special, and I don't know exactly. I don't know exactly how and why this was ported to such a ridiculous amount of things.
So this is one I need to slow you down for because I have never even heard of this game.
Okay.
So what is the gameplay of this?
So with Kicks, you control a cursor on a screen, and you use your cursor to draw boxes. And when you draw boxes and connect it to the border, it fills it in, and that becomes your claimed territory. And you're trying to claim over 75% of the screen, while there are two little sparks chasing you on your line, and there's a giant set of spinny, aggravated lines in the middle called the Kicks that will hurt you if you are out drawing your line for too long. So this game has a lot of really interesting strategies to it. It ramps up quite a bit if you get multiple levels in, which I haven't gotten more than I think level 3. But they add 2 kicks, which is I can't even imagine. That would be ridiculous. But I think it's really fun. I got pretty addicted to it. I played it for a couple hours straight late one night, which I should not have done. But I'm a Kicks fan. I don't know what to say.
So this is probably reductive, but is it kind of like dots and boxes in a respect?
Sure, I guess so.
Okay, that's for see that's.
But there's not a Kicks attacking you in dots and boxes.
Okay, sure. Okay, I'm starting to envision it in my mind's eye. And you said this is a launch game for the Game Boy?
I believe so. I believe it was one of the few launch games, and I could be misremembering that. I heard about this game on Game Boy Works, which is Jeremy Parrish's, or no, Game Boy World, which is Jeremy Parrish's sort of game-by-game review of the Game Boy library, and I was like, huh, very interesting. Might as well give it a try.
I don't know what I'm very curious. See, what's going to be fun audience for you today in this episode is Tucker has been playing a lot of games from a lot of different consoles. He's really opened up Pandora's box for himself, which has led to a string of games, some of which he put on his backlog prematurely, so I saw, and probably some surprises you're going to get into. But I'm very in any episode beginning with Kicks.
Exactly.
Episode you want to listen to
100%. And I just have to say that I'm happy that I'm trying these weird things. The last 2 or 3 months have been very down for me in terms of video games. If you look back to where we were at the heyday of BLB, I would say us like each bringing like 10 games to talk about. And we're just rapid firing. I had kind of left that energy behind, and I've since recaptured it. And it's very exciting for me. And discovering simplistic puzzle games that no one fucking talks about is my forte. Randomly stumbling across Picross and becoming obsessed with Picross, with Yoshi earlier this year, and now with Kicks. I'm on a roll, and I'm having a great time.
Good. By the way, audience members, if you want to listen to us talk about another obscure puzzle game, our Kururin review, link in the cards, maybe.
Yep, I'll try.
And by the way, I'm speaking directly to you. Nobody, not one viewer, has clicked on a card before, so you should be the first one. Audience member out there.
Wow. Now I thought you meant me because you said you, and I'm the only one listening.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. But yeah, please click on the cards. We've got a lot of stuff, and you should see it. It's all webbed together occasionally when I remember to put cards in the corners.
Tucker, I want to talk to you briefly about another puzzle game that hails from the Game Boy era. It's where it's most popular, but I want to talk about a modern permutation of it, and that is Tetris 99.
Okay. We've brought this game up a couple times on BLB, I believe, unless I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, I know you have brought it up, and I shared my thoughts then, but I was very big into Tetris 99 back when it launched, and played it quite regularly. But the reason that I got back into Tetris 99, oh shit, hold on. Talk to the audience for 10 seconds.
Okay, he's running. He's probably got some prop comedy. He's got something to show me. His Nintendo Switch, I believe. Yes, he's retrieving his Nintendo Switch, and let's see what he's showing us. He probably some sort of special Tetris 99 extravaganza.
So Tucker, we recently in my house threw out a reclining chair, and my dad was like cleaning it because we're just putting it at the end of our driveway so someone could take it for free, right? And in cleaning the chair, he found this. This is a Hori Joy-Con L with a D-pad on it, which I lost a long time ago and thought I'd never see again. But it was wedged in this chair we threw out.
Do you have do you have its buddy? You have its pair?
Well, no, these were only sold as the
I guess that makes sense.
So you have a D-pad, and these are really cheap. They're like $25. The D-pad is great, but it doesn't have gyro and it doesn't have a lot of things, so it's a trade-off. But I had it, so I wanted to just feel the might and the majesty of having a D-pad on Switch again. So I hopped back into Tetris 99 because I'm a big Tetris fan. I played earlier this year and adored Tetris Effect Connected. And so getting back into Tetris 99 has been fun. I've been playing it before I go to bed, usually a couple of rounds before I go to bed, listening to a podcast. And this really it's an excellent game. And it's really great to see it still thriving in an online sense 2 years later. Sure. You can find matches for the game instantly. You can be in and out. It's great. There is now, for most people, I'd imagine fell off of Tetris 99. There is such an infrastructure here in terms of unlockables with the new themes and the new modes and everything. So it's such a rich experience. But the problem, Tucker, is that the only people playing Tetris 99 now are the people that are good at Tetris.
Very
99.
Good at it, yeah.
So I can hang, but I can't win. I can get into the top 20, the top 10 now. I used to be able to get close. I've never won Tetris 99. It's kind of my goal. I want to get one win. Got a lot of seconds, a lot of thirds. It seems more unlikely now than ever. But I really just wanted to shout it out quickly because I think it's a really great game. And honestly, in my opinion, one of the core reasons to get an NSO membership.
Sure. Yeah. No, and I think we had a little bit of qualms with Pac-Man 99 in terms of the amount of content that it had and a lot of its stuff being locked behind that paywall. I would be curious to see if Pac-Man 99's content drops continue the same path that Tetris 99 did. Because Tetris 99 was also pretty bare at launch. They had a physical release / DLC content edition a couple months after it came out. But it's possible Pac-Man 99 follows that trend, though Tetris is easily more popular. And it would not surprise me. In fact, it would probably surprise me if there was extra significant content drops for Pac-Man 99. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't really ever get any other support.
Yeah, I think we would have heard about it by now if they're going to. And I also think that Tetris 99 just ate its lunch. I mean, what are you going to do? Hey, here's a Pac-Man theme for Mario Golf. Well, Tetris 99 for 2 years has been doing that already. I feel like probably what NSO needs next is another fun, engaging online freebie, but maybe not a 99. I think
that would be cool.
There's so many multiplayer archetypes. I think you could probably pull in something else.
Yeah, there are actually more multiplayer video games than just battle royales, which I know is tough for the kids these days to understand.
Kids who watch BLB just don't get it.
Exactly. You're breathing. That's never
share
a good sign.
Game. That's what I was giving you a command.
All right. So I'm actually going to share this for the kids who watch BLB. Being our viewers and friends in the Discord, who we are doing something called our monthly game club with. And this is going to be something we try to get going month by month. I think it'll slowly get better over time. But we started it in a really shitty way last month where our friend Bela suggested the game Iconoclasts. About 3 people played it. I don't think anyone beat it, and we all just talked about the fact that we didn't play it, and it was kind of funny. It's a good meme.
Right.
But I actually did start Iconoclasts, and I have since played about 5 hours of it, which I think is about half. And this game is really interesting for a couple reasons. I didn't know anything about it before going in, but it's a puzzle platformer. It's a retro throwback platforming game. They've got plenty of these kind of things. I got a giant wrench that you can combat with. You got a laser gun. You got upgrades and stuff. Some kind of unique systems in terms of how you upgrade your character.
Sure.
But where this game really shines is in the writing, which is crazy because this is a game about religion. It's a game about like interrace conflict. It's a game about like really deep interpersonal like problems, and it's told through this really diverse cast of characters. There's a ton of damn characters in this game, and they all fill interesting roles, and they fight one another and stuff. It's like, oh, okay. And I think that's what this game does best, because in all honesty, the combat it's fine. It's not fantastic. The platforming is fine. It's not fantastic. The visuals are very good. The music is good, but it's all of this based around this very interesting and unique story that you never see out of this kind of title. So that's why I'm enjoying it.
Cool. So I didn't even buy Iconoclasts. I joined Game Club and just, I mean, yeah, it's a conversation for a different time. You cut up, but I'm assuming you're making fun of me, and it's probably deserved for not even trying the game. But here's what I will say. I think that's very interesting, because my sense from the outside looking in was that Iconoclasts seemed pretty archetypical for what the indie scene was putting out, and it seemed really late to the punch. And so the fact that it's being held up by its narrative is pretty interesting. Now, I don't know for me personally if the standard to substandard gameplay, depending on who you ask in our circle. Join the Discord if you want to share your thoughts. I don't know if that's enough to compel me to play just on the merit of its narrative, but I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on the entire arc if you end up finishing the game, because I'll live vicariously through you, I suppose.
Sure, yeah, and that's usually what we do with one another. Is like one person finishes the game, the other person doesn't. Like, okay, well, if you beat it, then I beat it, so we'll just count it there.
Are you gonna finish, do you think?
I think so. I mean, I'm interested enough in the story, and it's not a particularly long game. I think you can beat it in slightly under 10 hours. So just playing 45 minutes a day, I'll knock it out relatively soon. So cool. I think it's one of those games that I want to have under my belt. There's a lot of games that I bought for my Switch where I'm like, okay, I've heard of this, I don't want to try it. Play it for 2 hours and haven't come back to them. And I don't want this to become one of those. Unfortunately, Bayonetta is in that slot. Owlboy, Golf Story, a lot of those games that I bought earlier in my Switch that I tried but didn't finish. And I'd like to, but also that's the backlog curse of doom. We've got a lot of shit to play. And if Kix is taking my time and I can't get into Bayonetta or Owlboy, that's just how the cookie crumbles, I guess.
Those are actually both games I also own that I want to play. I thought Owlboy was just okay, to be honest with you. I think it's beautiful, but the gameplay didn't quite work for me. But I do want to play Bayonetta pretty soon, actually.
Sure. We could plan a review. Although we plan plenty of reviews for stuff that we never end up reviewing. But if we focused a little bit, that'd be tough. But if we focus a little bit, it could be one of them.
You want me to share my next game?
I would love nothing more. Except for the spin for Quest. I like that a little more.
That's fair. It's hard to top.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Returnal a little bit more.
Oh, shit.
So Returnal, as people are probably aware, as it is one of the only actual PS5 console exclusives, it's Housemarque's new title. I don't know if I've ever talked about this on BLB, but I bought it at launch. I really enjoyed it, but also that was during the last few weeks of my college semester, so I just kind of didn't have the time to devote to it. So I got to the third biome, couldn't beat the third biome, put it down, finished up school, and came back to it. And I just don't think that I want to have my job broken by this game over and over again. I think what I've come to recognize about it is that everything I enjoyed at the beginning holds true. I think that the gameplay loop is still excellent. I think that the world design is still excellent. I think that the way that the narrative unfolds is still excellent. But I just think that as a roguelike, it's punishing in a way that's inventive, but not in a way that's compelling me to keep going.
Sure.
So for people who aren't aware, you go through these pretty long runs. Runs can go on an hour, 2 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you die. And the game, like immediately you die and it cuts to Celine crashing again. One of the most interesting parts of the game is that there's basically no menu sequence. There's so little fat on the bone. You die, it's the same cutscene. You're right back at the beginning.
Sure.
And key things persist, but it's not enough to make you feel like you're getting more powerful throughout runs.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these thoughts are not new, by the way. This is the opinion on this game is pretty polarized, but for me, I find that I'm just fucking annoyed when I die now. Because I want to keep moving forward, because I want to see the biomes, I want to understand Celine's story, because one of the most interesting aspects is sometimes she'll find her own corpses.
Yeah,
Which,
I've heard about that.
there are so many cool ideas here, and the combat feels so good, but it's like, okay, I'm gonna run again, and I'm gonna go back through the first biome so I can get a good foothold, so I can move on and get these weapons. But fingers crossed, the RNG works in my favor, and then I get melted, and then there goes an hour and a half of setting
Sure.
up for what seems like a promising run that just ends in seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a compelling gameplay experience in a certain sense, but I just don't feel like it's not enough for me to push through. I just don't
Yeah.
care enough. It's hard to get invested when I don't feel like I'm making forward momentum.
No, yeah, and I think that's my issue on the whole with the roguelike genre. It
Yeah.
always feels like, okay, well, if I'm just doing the exact same thing again and it's going to be incredibly rare and a huge time sink for me to feel like I'm actually progressing in a significant way, then why bother? Because I'm personally someone who gets a lot of gratification out of completing things. I like
Yeah.
checking off that box and saying, okay, I did this whole thing. I watched this whole movie. I finished this game. Bam.
Yeah.
And if it's just the same thing over and over again and very hard to get to the end of that, then I have a hard time wanting to sink my time into it. I do think it's a game that I want to try. It is a game that I am most certainly going to wait for it to possibly show up PS Plus at some point. I think is a
Yeah.
possibility. It could be a $20 title for a holiday sale or something like that. I do think it's a game that'll sit in that slot relatively soon. And at that point, okay, there's not that $70 like investment to go for it. I do want to see how the story works. I do want to see how
Yeah.
good the combat is, the visuals, the sound design, the way it uses the haptics. But when I got into the only roguelike I've ever really liked, which is Hades,
Yeah.
the thing that pulled me into that game was the way that it did feel like you were progressing after every single run. There's always forward momentum. You're always unlocking something new. You always can take something with you to continue your progress. And if this is 2 hour runs as opposed to Hades 30 minutes or less, I don't know if it's necessary for me. But I'm happy this game exists. It's a really big roguelike, which I think is really interesting. Like the fact that it's pushed by Sony. It's one of their biggest games for this console so far. And it's a roguelike, I think puts it in an interesting space because of that.
Yeah, what I will say to that point is I think that it's worth $70. I do think this
Sure.
game is worth $70. I think that on a subjective level, you have to be able to ride with its structure.
Mm-hmm.
But from a production standpoint, I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Now that I'm back home and playing it up on my big TV with headphones on and my roommate's not chattering next to me and there's not shit all around me on a little monitor, right? It's stunning. What they do with the haptics, what they do with sound design. This is a $70 game. I just think that there should have been options. There should have been ways to scale this sort of challenge, I
Yeah.
think.
Mm-hmm.
I almost feel like the game should have been a 5 hour narrative campaign that tells Celine's
Oh.
story, and then no, but hold, see, I'm not just this is not me just being dumb Abrams short game bullshit. I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
that 5 hours narrative story, and then it opens up the world of Atropos to do roguelike runs through.
Yes, exactly. I clicked in my head as soon as you were saying core narrative expanding, because that, I mean, from what I know about the structure of the game, its story, and people's problems with it, that sounds perfect. I mean, and say you get a complete but not the entire story playing that 5 hour thing, and then you can really dig into the world with expanded runs and finding things around the world. That you should be up there at move to Housemark.
Move the
Whisper in
house
their
mark.
whisper in their ear. Be a little birdie. Whisper in their ear.
Yeah. So I don't know. I almost hope that they I don't know, patch in something later down the line. Maybe they patch in a checkpoint system. Maybe they do whatever, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I don't mind putting in the work to overcome a challenging game, but I just don't want to feel like my teeth are getting kicked in when I lose.
Yeah.
Something like Cyber Shadow earlier this year is challenging,
Mm-hmm.
but that challenge was contextualized in a way where you're always making forward progress.
Yeah.
The other thing is, Tucker, if Returnal was not a narrative experience, it was just a high score experience, like Housemarque's past games, then fine, have it kick my teeth down my throat, because the point then is about, just get a little
Personal
bit farther,
growth.
get your
Yeah.
score up, get your skill higher. But I want to know Celine's story. I want to see the later biomes, and I just
Yeah.
don't feel like the game is accommodating that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting that you went back to it, because I remember you saying, I think one of the first videos we recorded when we got home, you saying, "Hey, I do want to get back to Returnal now that I'm not
Yeah.
got college weighing down on my back." And in my brain, I'm thinking, "Oh, I've heard this song and dance a gazillion
Yes, you
times. This
have.
motherfucker is never playing Returnal again in his life."
Yeah.
And guess what? You proved me wrong. And it seems like you've sort of reframed your opinion on it a little bit,
Yeah.
but I good on you for actually, standing up to the man for once.
Yes.
Now, of course, coming off of Returnal, big game 2021, everyone talking about it. Let's go to It's Mr. Pants.
Let's go for it.
Let's go to It's Mr. Pants. And that's the fun thing here on Backlog Banter is you never know what to expect from the two of us motherfuckers. I discovered It's Mr. Pants existence less than a week ago. I think about 4 days ago.
Yeah.
When I was researching the Donkey Kong bongo related games.
Yeah.
Donkey Konga, Barrel Blast is with the bongos. Is that? I think it's a control option. I don't know. There's the bongos exist, and I was researching
Jungle
those games. Yes, Jungle Beat's the one I was forgetting. Thank you. And then if you scroll to the very bottom of this page of things related to the Donkey Kong bongos, is a game called Donkey Kong Coconut Crackers, which is a game that never released and developed by Rare, which became It's Mr. Pants. And I'm like, what the hell is this, Mr. Pants? So I have given myself access through unscrupulous means to It's Mr. Pants. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know the gameplay. I didn't know the visuals. I didn't know anything about it, only the name, until I booted it up. And my first 13 to 15 minutes of gameplay are recorded, my first time recording myself playing gameplay, and uploaded on the Backlog Banter channel, not pushed live yet.
Okay. All right.
So it's me sitting there being like, I don't know what It's Mr. Pants is, but I'm going to try it. And it's an interesting game. It's a GBA era puzzle game made by Rare. It's got this crazy charm to it, crazy visual style, insane noises, score composed by David Wise. But it's a block puzzle game, except you're trying to overlap shapes in patterns to make rectangles so they go away. So it's Tetris, but you have free range and you're placing the pieces in different connotations, and it's specific level challenges that are like designed. And I think it's really fun. It's really hard to get your head around first. If you watch my gameplay, I sit there playing this one level. I'm like, I don't understand what's going on, because I'm so limited in my puzzle view that I think, okay, if there's two things on the sides, I can't move outside of that. However, those were block borders that I could have interacted with, and I didn't realize that. So it reframes the puzzle block aspect that you're used to in your Tetrises and another game that I'll be talking about soon. And on top of that, it's got this hand-drawn crayons art style. It's got animal noises whenever you clear a block. It's got this guy, it's Mr. Pants, who only wears underpants, like farting and singing in the background. It's a weird game that's clearly a love letter from its developers to just having a good time, British humor, like trying something weird. I mean, it's the last game developed by Rare before they were bought by Microsoft. So this game sits in a very strange place in history. It's very unique, and I think it's a lot of fun. It's
cool.
It makes sense that it never got popular or got a sequel or anything, but it's so peculiar. I love it.
I'm really glad you brought it up and talked to me about it, because this is a game I remember reading about in a circumspect way in Nintendo Power, because they had mentioned it, and that was my only touchstone with the game. And I knew very basic things about it, but hearing you actually get into it it's very peculiar. I think people really overlook how fucking bizarre Rare was.
Yeah.
I feel like people think of, your perfect darks, your golden eyes, your banjos, and they kind of forget that Rare had some weird stuff going on, which is, I think, part of their charm. So that's super, super cool.
Yeah. That's probably the last time we're going to talk about It's Mr. Pants here on the Backlog Banter channel. But I wanted to make sure I like pulling out the weird things, and this is that's probably the weirdest one yet.
Tucker, I wanna actually talk about a game that you just mentioned. I wasn't meaning to talk about it, but I played it recently, and why not bring it up? Talk about Donkey Konga for a minute itself.
Okay.
Because my girlfriend was here a little bit ago, visiting. We've been playing a bunch of random co-op games. And one that we stumbled into was Donkey Konga, which I have had and I've played a little bit by myself. Tucker, this is a true story. It sounds like this is a meme, but this is a true fact about young Abram Buhner. When I was a little kid, I had Donkey Konga 2. I got it from like a thrift shop or something. And I used to just play All-Star by Smash Mouth on Donkey Konga 2 over and over and over again.
That sounds real. I would believe that, yeah.
Because I used to be a huge unironic Shrek fan. So like there's the Shrek songs. I'd play it on my bongos over and over again.
Yeah.
But when Jean was here, that was the first time that I had ever really gotten into co-op in versus Donkey Konga.
Okay.
Which is just absolutely awesome. I feel like people don't give Donkey Konga enough credit because it is a niche on top of a niche, right?
Yes. But it's a Donkey Kong spin-off on GameCube that requires a peripheral.
Because it was essentially, Tucker, Nintendo's response to Guitar Hero.
Okay.
Because that was the era.
Didn't work.
No, not really. That was the era where Guitar Hero was fucking enormous on PS2.
Sure, yeah.
So Nintendo had to go their own way, and that entails a really weird song selection of like old 70s and 80s tracks and Queen covers and a very few Nintendo songs. But when you are playing with somebody and you're drumming competitively, it's so much fun. There's a degree of chaos here that is hard to recapture, and the tactile element of actually playing with the bongos is just great. It's so creative. It's so simple. You have your left bongo, your right bongo, and a microphone that you clap over.
Okay.
And with that, they pull so much out of these simple mechanics, and I really think that it is a top tier Nintendo local multiplayer title.
I'm absolutely fascinated by Donkey Kong spinoffs because there's a bunch of them, but no one fucking talks about any of them. But B, the fact that Nintendo has a game that has covers in it of actual songs, like that doesn't register in my brain. But also just the fact that there are these games that are not talked about that have different control schemes, peripheral controllers, asynchronous multiplayer, arcade games with specific cabinets, which is a subsect of games that aren't talked about, that have been influential, but have faded away over time as things have become standardized. They want to be on multiple consoles. They want to be as available as possible. So when there's not a lot of experimentation when it comes to control styles. I get a lot of recommendations, or I hear about a lot of games from Jared Petty's show, the Top 100 Games podcast, in which he every time brings up one of his 100 favorite games of all time. And usually it's some sort of strange arcade game with a unique gameplay style and some sort of weird multiplayer that was influential, but no one talks about it anymore. And that is tangentially applies to those bongo games made by Nintendo that aren't talked about anymore unless they're like a meme. But I really want to play them. And I believe in some circumspect subsect way, whenever you are in my presence, physical presence, and I can touch your arms, we will play the Donkey Kong barrel games, bongo games.
Yes.
You have Konga. Do you have Konga 2?
Not anymore.
You said you're getting Konga 3, which by the way is Japanese exclusive to anyone who doesn't know.
And we're going to talk about Japanese exclusive stuff, but yes, I'm going to.
Well, I would want to play Jungle Beat. I would want to try Barrel Blast. All these weird GameCube Wii Donkey Kong spinoffs that are going to be really fun multiplayer. I think we've got a Donkey Kong themed in-person gameplay multiplayer week planned, and I can't fucking wait for it.
I can't either. Two things I want to say. First of all, am I wrong in thinking that Barrel Blast it was going to be a GameCube game released on the Wii and uses Wii Remote Nunchuck. Is that the deal?
It does, but I do think I think the bongos are an option.
Okay, that's very cool.
The crazy thing about all of this with Jungle Beat, the Konga games, Barrel Blast, they were all released within like a year or two of each other. Like they just pumped these out, and no wonder they didn't sell very well. They oversaturated their own Donkey Kong spin-off weird peripheral market, which is just stupid. But it's a fun part of Nintendo history that no one talks about.
Also, I want to mention very quickly Donkey Kong Jungle Climber on the DS.
Oh, yes.
Which is a game where you play as Donkey Kong and his arms move like this and you grab onto pegs to throw yourself around.
Very clearly inspirational to Astro's Playroom. The monkey level where you go like that.
That's an interesting connection, actually. But Donkey Kong Jungle Climber was the very first Nintendo game I ever owned myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you still have it?
No, not anymore.
Oh.
Because when I was a young boy, I used to have to sell all my games to get new.
Yeah, no, that's reasonable. I sold quite a few of my games. I've rebought the ones that I care to have, but also I didn't have a ton of games, as a kid. And the ones that I did have, I cared about a lot. My Pokemons, my Lego Star Wars, my Smash. Yeah. So like I never had that issue, but when I ask you if you still have that game, it's mostly just on the chance that you kept it, but it makes sense you don't still have Donkey Kong Jungle Climber.
Tucker, let's stay in the realm of GameCube for a little bit.
Okay. Oh, is it not my turn?
Wasn't it your turn? Oh no, it is your turn.
Donkey Konga. It's my turn. This is a give and take, bucko. And I will take you to the world of another early Game Boy puzzle game that you don't know anything about. A game simply known as Quarth. Or I think it's got, hold on. Bullshit for a second. Hold on, I need to double check something. Hey
everybody, I'm here. I'm vamping for you. Look at that. It's a little Joy-Con. I haven't been playing my Switch too much recently. I have to say, I really haven't been. I am excited for Mario Golf. I am going to be playing quite a bit of that. But Tucker, are you done?
Yes, I'm done. I just wanted to confirm that this game is not only called Quarth, but also Block Hole. And it is actually available on Switch. There's an ACA or like an Arcade Archives, I believe, version of this game. And it's got some other versions, but I played Quarth on the Game Boy, which is a combo of Space Invaders and Tetris.
Obviously.
Because what else would it be? You play as a little rocket. There's a little bit of customization when you select the level. You can choose like one of 6 little rockets, one of which is a bell being held up by 2 cherubs, which is a little strange. But Quarth, you play, blocks are falling towards you. You're down at the bottom, a la Space Invaders, like I was saying. And you are shooting blocks up into formations to make them into full rectangles. Much like it's Mr. Pants trying to clear these blocks.
Now that sounds very clever to me.
It's very clever. It's really fucking boring, and there's no depth to it whatsoever.
That's too bad.
It's cool concept at first. You're like, oh, they're mixing these gameplay elements. It's got really obnoxious music. It's got terribly obnoxious music. But it's cool for about 20 minutes, but then you realize that it's kind of all or nothing. You're either waiting for blocks to come to you because you can clear them very quickly, or there's just a ton coming towards you and it's super overwhelming. There's not any like strategy to it. You can clear blocks that are placed next to one another if there's holes in them. If you make it into like a hollow rectangle, you can clear it. But that's really like circumstantial. It's hard to have that situation come up. It's not a good game. It's interesting. It's an interesting part of history. It's developed by Konami. And published by Nintendo, but it's just a weird game and it's not good. I don't recommend Quarth. I'm glad I gave it a try because now I can say I've played fucking Quarth. But if you want to try, you can get Block Hole for probably $8 because Arcade Archives games cost too much on Nintendo Switch. But I don't recommend it.
Well, then I won't buy it.
Don't play Quarth.
There we go. Tucker, I have 2 more games. How many do you have?
I'll say 1.
1? Okay.
So this works out perfectly.
So I want to talk a little bit about Kururin Squash.
Great. I can't wait to hear your opinions on this.
So, for context, people who aren't familiar, Kururin Squash is the third game in the Kururin series. It was only released in Japan on GameCube,
Mm-hmm.
which meant I had to buy a Japanese GameCube because the region lock on GameCube is really fucking hard to get around.
Mm-hmm.
Some systems is really easy to break. On GameCube, you either need to get a intrusive hardware mod or you need an action replay bootloader disc, which are, believe it or not, out of print and fucking expensive to try to buy online. So it's actually cheaper for me to go on eBay and buy a Japanese GameCube because
Now, first things first, I'm just curious,
yeah,
is this your first import console?
first import console, yes.
Okay, just checking.
It's a very easy one to import because it uses the same cables as
Oh,
an
okay.
American GameCube.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
I went on eBay and just bought the cube itself. I used the
Mm-hmm.
same controller, used my second memory card. Important for people to know you can use an American memory card, but it can only store Japanese games, if that makes sense. So you
You have to
can't
form, like, essentially format it.
you got to format the card. It can
Mm-hmm.
it so I use a lot of the same stuff I already had. Um, I got the GameCube. It works. It's totally fine. But what the seller neglected to show in their listing is that they had a huge, gaudy Sonic Adventure sticker on the front of the GameCube, which I had to clean off with Goo Gone, which was a tedious process. But got it hooked up and played some Kururin Squash. And Tucker, I love this game.
Mm-hmm.
I really love this game. It's the same core gameplay as Kururin, but it's ratcheted up to 11 in some different ways.
Okay.
But I played the first world, which is a much more substantial endeavor than in Kuru.
Now,
There-
how many levels per world are we talking? Because it was
Well,
three
so there's
for
six levels,
Kururin.
Tucker, and a boss
Double.
battle.
Oh, well, that's
Because
fun.
what's really cool about this game is that there are stages where it's more traditional, where you're just flying the Hellerin around, but then there's stages where you have a Hellerin that has boxing gloves on either side.
Okay.
And there are
Oh, much like
enemies
Mario
and
Odyssey.
obstacles. I suppose so. And you can hit the button to shoot your gloves out. So there's the added timing component of spinning yourself around,
Arms.
kind of like arms, to hit the enemies. And you can change your propeller speed. There's some more movement
Hmm.
option. But this feels like a real expansion of what the first game had to offer.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Are full of coins which you can spend at a shop to get various power-ups, not just there are cosmetics, but different power-ups and items and things. Unfortunately, I can't read what they are, but I found last night a guide of somebody who has translated them, so I'm going to use
Okay.
that when I play next. But it's so much it's more involved, but it maintains the simple arcade charm of Kururin. And I think having the combination of the traditional stages with these more action-oriented stages adds so much variety.
Yeah.
And so you're fighting enemies, and then you get to the boss, and the boss, I was a little bit nervous we're going to get back into like Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz territory where these boss fights feel shoehorned in and don't make sense.
Mm.
But this one really works. You're fighting this big monkey man who is on top of like a spinning cake, and you have to punch strawberries at him, and he's reversing the course and throwing enemies at you. So you're multitasking, managing all these elements. This game is just a great expansion upon what worked before.
Yeah. I mean,
And it has,
oh,
well, the
continue.
last thing I was going to say, Tucker, is it has a much more involved narrative. Unfortunately, I can't read any of it, but it has this really beautiful, like, pop-up book child aesthetic. All the
Okay.
characters are on little strings. They're like little puppets that characters have made, and they like move around, and there's more characters and bosses. And I really wish this game had come to America
Yeah.
because it's really special, and I'm really enjoying it.
I wish it came to America, not only because it would have been accessible to more people, but because I want to play it. I really
Yeah,
do. I enjoyed the first game so much that a game that uses that formula and expands on it in pretty substantial ways, as you're saying.
yeah,
Although you might want to play Paradise to see what stuff was upgraded from the first to that, because there
sure.
might be some stuff that was actually introduced in there and not in Squash. Which, by the way, who the fuck came up with that name?
I don't know.
It's strange, but I really want to play that game. I might be
Yeah,
able to find a Japanese GameCube emulator or something because it's a game that I just want to give a try because this really does
sure.
sound like just better. It's just more better everything.
Yeah, it controls so much more smoother with the GameCube controller in mind. There's just so many elements of I already think Kuru is a close to perfect gameplay experience,
Mhm.
but this is just that with some more ambition and more elements. And just a larger console feel and multiplayer, which I'm excited to try out with my sister at some point. There really is a lot to dig into here. So I'm super excited. And Tucker, I want to talk about this more next week because I got Dash and the Giant arriving in the mail, which I'm excited to try.
I really want to play that game.
Yeah, I really can't wait to play this in particular. I've always heard amazing things about Dash and the Giant. But there's something really interesting about playing games in a language you don't understand.
Okay.
Because you always take for granted on the back of the box, you'll see like basic reading skills are needed to fully enjoy this game. And you take that for granted. So I think it's interesting to play a game and see how clear your visual language and your game design is without the text itself.
Sure.
I think that's an interesting way to recontextualize game design, and I think it's going to matter more in Dashin because that's a game that's a little bit more engaged mechanically, and it's
and plus you're not already familiar with the gameplay style,
right?
Yeah.
So I think I want to touch more on this next week, but just something.
Though Dashin the Giant is available in English because it was also in PAL. It was also released in the EU region.
That's true. The problem, of course, is that that's also region locked.
Yeah.
And if I had to go, bang for the buck, there's more Japanese exclusives I want to play, plus the PAL ones. So
reasonable. Is that it for Kururin Squash?
Yes.
Okay. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on the game once you've presumably beaten it. I doubt it's much longer than the original.
I don't think it's. Apparently, it's not particularly long now.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. Well. I've got a 1-2 punch here. Or actually, no, I think I'm just going to make it a 1 punch because the other punch was
anime reference.
Weak. What?
It's an anime.
One Punch Man, yeah, okay. But we're going to talk about something we sort of touched on yesterday on a private call, which is a game called Frog Fractions.
Oh, right.
Yes. And this is an interesting game. I found out about this yesterday morning. Another shout out to our not friend of the show, but hopefully one day, Jared Petty, who this is one of his favorite games of all time. And he was talking about what an interesting game it is, how influential it was for Flash games and indie developers. And he said, and basically I quote, but I'm parroting what he informed me of, is this is a 50-minute game available for free on Steam in its HD version. It's best if you go in not knowing anything about it. Just play the game so you can know what it is. And he didn't expound any further. He just said, trust me on this one. And I said, okay, Jared Petty, I've heard your taste in games before. This sounds perfect for a recommendation of a game because it has no significant time commitment, no monetary commitment. I'm going to download it and play it and see what happens. And just without any spoilers, I'm not going to talk about what the game is because I do think that this game works best if you know nothing about it going in. But I think it's interesting. I kind of had some information about it given to me before, so I don't think its strengths worked as well to me as they probably would if you did know nothing about it going in. But it's got a great sense of humor. It's got some interesting gameplay mechanics. It definitely recontextualizes what you expect out of indie games, out of games in general. And it's got a great story behind it as well. The developer, his history with game making, and the history of the Frog Fractions franchise is also absolutely fascinating. So I'm very glad that I tried it. I'm very glad that I discovered it because I probably found out about it 16 hours ago or whatever. But Frog Fractions, if you are watching this episode, you've got a Steam and a computer and 50 minutes of time, just give it a try. So will now be informed of the existence of Frog Fractions.
Tucker, I was being a bitch boy when we talked yesterday.
Oh, really? You're going to admit that?
Yeah, I am going to admit that. I think we were both getting too catty for no reason.
I agree.
About Frog Fractions. I wrote it off too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to make good by making I'm not going to make a blood oath because I don't like cuts and things of that nature. But imagine
you're not a sanguine man. Imagine
like Jesse Eisenberg in Batman vs Superman bringing back Darkseid. I'm going to slice my hand open, squeeze the blood into on top of General Zod's body, and tell you that by next episode I will have played Frog Fractions. Okay, very interesting. And I got to be honest, and we're talking a little meta commentary here about our conversation yesterday, which did get unnecessarily heated. And I apologize for being aggressive in my recommendation. That was not intentional. And honestly,
I should have waited to talk about it until the episode where I would have been able to give a more proper explanation of the game and my thoughts on it and such. But thank you for apologizing. Means a lot. I was nervous to bring it up here because I'm like, oh fuck, I don't want to reignite this flame. But
no, I'll play it.
No,
I'll play it. 50 minutes. I'll fucking play
it. It'll be interesting to have a conversation about the game on the whole. Because
maybe what we do is next week, Tucker, we'll save that for the very end, then we can talk in spoilers about it.
Yes. Okay. That sounds good.
Sounds like
and if you're watching this and you're interested in Frog Factions, having played the game or not, come back at the end of the next episode and listen to us talk about it. And hopefully play the game before then.
Tucker, it's time.
Now, it's time, and I believe I know what you're talking about. However, I might want to cut you short on this one because if it is what I'm thinking about, then I might want to make this something we review.
I refuse to let you stop me from talking about Star Fox Assault.
Okay, yeah, that's the game that you were going to talk about, yeah.
Yes. I refuse. I know you want to review it. I want to review it. Well, we will review it, and then we can get your perspective on things because I know you started it. But I want to talk about it. You can't stop me.
Okay.
Star Fox Assault, I have finally finished. I don't know why it took me so long. It's the game I first got with my GameCube. It's a game's fucking 5 hours long. Mm-hmm. It's the game I first got when I got my GameCube. I played some of it. I put it down.
Your very first game for the GameCube?
Yeah. Well,
and a Star Fox game, and it's 5 hours long, and you never beat it?
It's really complicated because I used to have a lot of GameCube games with my Wii, and then I sold all of them because I was a dumb fucking kid. I had a lot of good shit, and I got paid garbage. And I feel so bad about that. That's one of my biggest gaming regrets, period. Mm-hmm. But so I finally finished the game, and it's really interesting. I got a piece going up on it's going to be live by the time this video goes up, but this game is really ambitious. I think this is one of Nintendo's most ambitious games for a lot of different reasons. The production value is incredible, especially for GameCube.
Yeah.
The narrative is way more engaged. The gameplay is not only a lot more modern in some respects, but pretty forward thinking. Mm-hmm. Namco really gave it their all, and their all resulted in a 67 on Metacritic, which I think is too low, but this is a very flawed game. Star Fox Assault is not like 64. There is a score component, but it's not about score chasing. It's not about finding alternate routes. This is a 10-mission single-player cinematic campaign. Mm-hmm. And over the course of those 10 missions, you get, I think, 3 R-Wing missions and 7 missions that are either on foot or combined arms. The combined arms missions are fascinating. And this is something that other games couldn't pull off, but they try, like Battlefront 3 and things. Essentially, you're playing as Fox on the ground, but there's a star battle going on above you. So you have to manage the ground. You have to then jump in your R-Wing, fly up, fight in the sky, come back down, hop in the Landmaster, hop on foot. All of this stuff is going on. It's really dynamic and really impressive, especially for the time. Mm-hmm. The R-Wing missions are second to none. Mm-hmm. The last R-Wing mission is really hard. Even for me, as somebody who's played so much Star Fox, it's hard and it is so good. But there's 3 of them.
Yeah.
It's the balance is off, and the on-foot missions are kind of janky.
Yeah.
That's the big complaint the game has. Now, in its credit, to its defense, there was no standardization at all for what a third-person shooter was in the 6th generation.
Sure.
Single or dual stick, lock-on, more basic. What Assault is what third-person shooters were at this time.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it good.
Good, yeah.
And I think that when you learn the on-foot controls, it's pretty satisfying. By the end of the game, I enjoyed the on-foot missions.
Sure.
But it takes a while to get there because this is a case of Namco giving their all to a game and not getting the second shot that they should have gotten to flesh out their ideas.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're combining our thing here. Yeah. I played the first hour of Star Fox, so I think I did 3 missions. Okay. I'm very interested in the game, and I will beat it, and we will more than likely review it. I'm interested to have completed the game. I'm enjoying it quite a bit so far. It takes a lot of the things that I personally was wanting more out of a 64 and does those. I do think that it being very flawed is very clear. And those on foot sections, my biggest complaint switching between the weapons is fucking
no fucking weapon wheel.
infuriating.
There's
There's no weapon wheel. You just keep pressing A, and eventually you hope you hit the proper weapon. But I'm surprised that this game exists in terms of a more ambitious Star Fox title that is not talked about a lot. And from what I have played of the game, that this didn't become a greater thing. I know there's adventures. I know there's other Star Fox spinoffs. I don't even know how you categorize the Star Fox series in terms of mainline or spinoff or whatever. But I think it's a really cool game. It's very special in terms of what it does for Star Fox. I'm very excited to have it beat and have a full conversation about it.
Yeah, and so I'll keep my thoughts kind of truncated because we will do that review. I think this is a great complementary experience of 64. I think you should play both. I think that they stand nicely alongside each other. They are so different that I think that one doesn't supersede the other. But I do think that the future of Star Fox should have been Assault. Assault should have set the baseline for what Star Fox became, and it didn't. The multiplayer mode is incredible. It's basically that combined arms gameplay, but in a multiplayer context. There is so much about this game that
You've played that actually multiplayer, like in the past?
It's really great.
Okay.
The game just deserved a second shot that it never got, and I think that's kind of how I feel about it. If you can track down a copy, it's not especially expensive. It's worth playing. The narrative is surprisingly engaging, especially as you get deeper in. There's a lot going on, a lot of characters, a lot of fun things happening. The R-Wing missions are incredible. If you can adapt to those on-foot missions, I think that they get a lot better as you go along. And I really enjoyed this game. I think I have it placed at my number 8 favorite game I've played so far this year. I'm really glad I finally played it, and I do see myself replaying it, not nearly as often because it's A, longer, and B, it's not about that score chase, like I said.
Yeah.
So when I want to re-experience this story, I can probably beat it now in 2 sittings, probably 2 short sittings, being more familiar with it. But I'm really glad I played it. I think it's pretty great, in spite of its many obvious flaws.
Sure. Yeah. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this episode of Backlog Banter. I'm very happy with this episode. I think this is probably our best episode, to be honest. I brought energy for all my games. I was very engaged in the things you were saying about your games. Honestly, sometimes you start talking about a game I don't care about. I turn my brain off. I go start looking up the logos for games that I'm going to be using to edit the video later. But this one, I was engaged the whole time. We've got homework for next week. We've got plans for games to review. We have intercrossing puzzle Game Boy titles, future plans for Donkey Kong. Great episode, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank you for watching, and Abram, I would like to thank you for just being yourself,
Tucker, I would like to thank you for thanking me for doing that.
You're welcome.
I think there's a wasp in the room. I'm not talking about myself.
What are you going to do about it?
I'm just going to let it be. I don't mind a wasp.
Isn't a wasp a term for like a 40s woman or something like that?
Well, wasp could mean white Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Oh.
Hey, everybody.
I was going to say something about you being Protestant, but let's do the video.